That being said, let's continue, as you can see right here, on our cholesterol and statins. And yes, it still says women's health because we continue women's health, but it affects obviously men too dramatically, but also women. It's still the number one killer in both. Now, if you remember, I'm going to recap a little bit stuff the way, and we're going to tie this also into some of the things when it comes to no sugar challenge. And cardiovascular disease is rampant all over the world. It's dominant in males in the United States. It's dominant in females. Actually, the second most common killer is cancer, and it's not even a close second. It's just that far ahead. I come up from a family that has been through the same thing, but I'm very proud of. I showed you my calcium score and all the labs that I do on a regular basis to make sure that I do have good cardiovascular health and Durham. And as we're doing the no sugar challenge, I try to keep my sugars down through the year, but also once again, we do this no sugar challenge to keep that in the right direction. But as you can see, some of the misnomers about cholesterol and why people end up on statins. I'm going to show you why the negative side effects come from statins today. But if you look, for example, there's things we have to know about cholesterol. So let's take a look. Number one, we understand this. Cholesterol is a part of cell membranes. Go back to the old shows. If you're just joining for the first time, it shows you how important it is. It shows you how important for hormone production. It shows you that you need it for vitamin D synthesis. It needs for bile production. Okay, these are extremely important things when it comes to it. Okay, now if you understand, there's types of cholesterol. See, that's why once again people try to demonize cholesterol. Well, we're going to get a little bit more into it, but as you can see, there's different things that have to carry. Cholesterol is a fatty substance. You need a protein to carry it around. So there's things like LDL, which they consider bad, okay, which we do not. HDL, which is considered good, which we don't even consider. I believe they're both equal. Very low density lipoprotein we're talking about today, and also triglycerides, okay? And we're going to explain all these things a little bit more in depth. But here's one thing I want you to understand. The reason why these four things have been demonized, I believe, once again, and I talked about this when I didn't realize this clip was going to go viral again, but I've always said this. If you look at medical research and medical practice, it doesn't match up. The only way medical research and medical practice matches up is if there's a product to keep you on the rest of your life. I will tell you this. Being a chiropractor for 25, now my 26th year, we were always, like I tell people, if you look at history, there's always a yin and yang. There's always a dark and light. There's always an opposite of everything that way. And chiropractic started out as actually an opposition to medicine because they've said some dumb things for a long period of time. They have. And there always has to be opposition. The sad part is you saw it, and I really thank God for COVID. I really do, just because, now it can be taken out of context for people that want to just clip something. But it showed how bad the medical system is. And now they're trying to start all this bird flu crap and stuff of that, and they're going to scare. And it's really funny because here's what happens is most men don't care unless they're feminized. They try to scare the women, and they try to tell them their kids and all stuff of this, and that's one thing. So we need people to stand up, and that's why I'm strong enough to stand up and say, no, it's a bunch of crap, okay? And like I said, I posted the other day, and that thing went viral. I said, think of it this way. They're making a huge catastrophe out of one person that they allegedly got the bird flu out of 330 million people in the United States. Well, guess what happens? The amount of kids that have died or been damaged from vaccines, and you won't even put that on the news and stuff like that. So yeah, so we won't even get into that topic today. But that's why when you look at all these particles for cholesterol, which we're going to cover some of in detail, why I tell you sugar can be so detrimental to cardiovascular disease, is based on some of the particles and what actually gets put out into the system. But here's one thing I want you to see here. Take a look at this. Do you understand that the body makes most of the cholesterol needed in a day? It comes mainly from the liver, about 2/3 of it that way. So even your dietary cholesterol does not affect your blood cholesterol that much. So what they do? They said, well, in order to immobilize and not circulate cholesterol, as you can see, this is kind of the pathway. And once again, this is such basic biochemistry that as you walk through, you can see at the bottom over on the right, cholesterol is synthesized in the liver, but so is coenzyme Q10. So any interference to cholesterol also interferes with coenzyme Q10, which is essential for heart function and also mitochondrial function. Sterols, dolichols, and also heme A. But if you notice, they figured out a part of this pathway that they can inhibit. They have Lipitor and other statin drugs that they use, and that's why they're HMG-CoA reductase inhibitors. So it interferes that pathway. What do I mean? I want you to think of it this way. I want you to imagine that I got to go from A to B, B to C, and so far, I came up with a really funny one because it's kind of funny. I said, so with all the corruption, it's like going from J to Z. Haha, get that one with the whole, come on, that was funny right there. If you know the whole Diddy thing, J to Z, get it? But anyways, that's a whole different story. That's funny right there. I don't care who you are, okay? But No, if I want to go from A to B and B to C and C to D, there's certain steps. And so what they do is say, well, if I can get between A and B, I won't get C and D. But then look at this way. But at the end, it's not just unilateral. Let's go back to this, Tom. Let's go back and look at, there's cholesterol, there's coenzyme, there's all these things that are the end product of this normal physiological pathway, okay? And I don't know how you can inhibit a body back to normal, all right? So I always tell people, when you look at this, there has to be more to the story. And guess what? There is. We talked about last week. We talked about just even all the scientific literature that is actually, once again, bogus. We look at that clinical trials data on saturated fats. It actually doesn't provide a lot of information. Most rigorous evidence of saturated fats showing that they did not cause heart disease was suppressed for a long time. The current 10% cap on saturated fat, as advised by U.S. dietary guidelines for Americans, is not supported by prominent evidence, and that's why you see this. And I showed you that now they just came out and said, eggs are a health food. All right? So what I'm going to do today, since we talked about no sugar, because then what happens is I started talking about this last week. They say, but doc, then why is my cholesterol so elevated? And why are these things? Well, once again, when we look at the factors of cholesterol itself is a combination of multiple factors put together, and then it does end up in circulation. It really does. You look at cholesterol as a number, it's HDL, LDL plus 1/5 of triglycerides combined, and then what happens is that's your total number. So that means there's multiple factors that can raise your cholesterol or actually help you bring it down. Now, if I see somebody that has extremely high cholesterol, is it because, like we talked about, is there a vessel repair needed? Or maybe you're just sassy. Well, what do I mean by sassy? Well, here's what happens. Here's another viral video I did that's gotten hundreds of millions of views. I said, listen, I can help you get rid of your sugar craving. There's only one way that I know of scientifically to do it, and that's to die. Do you know what I'm saying? Because we all crave sugar, and for the couple exceptions that crave more salt, yes, but you still do crave sugar. Our body runs very well on glucose. Can it use certain fatty acids? Absolutely. Can it use certain ketones? Absolutely. But there's certain body parts, especially your brain and nervous system. Now, being a chiropractor, that's very important because, once again, it runs off of it well, but if it gets too elevated, and we have one of our wonderful students that probably puts one of the best cholesterol values out there, Alex, he's here. Once again, this is Mike's and Stephanie's son here, and it's kind of cool. Mike and Stephanie are our future lab directors. But here's what happens this, is, we know this, that being a chiropractor, that the nervous system needs sugar to function. But if it gets too much, Alex, what condition could happen if you had too much sugar? What kind of condition could affect the nervous system?
Anything neurodegenerative.
That's right. Like you said, neurodegenerative, like neuropathy. That's why people have problems at the end of their fingers, neuropathy. So sugar too low can be detrimental to the nervous system, but sugar too high. See, so people say, doc, is sugar bad? No. Sugar too low is bad. Sugar too high is bad. If it's too long a time too low, it's bad. If it's too high, it's too bad. That's why when you see people say, we run on ketosis. Well, guess what happens? If you do that for a long period of time, there could be damage to the nervous system. And if your blood sugar is too high for too long, you have neurodegenerative disease that could be neuropathy, dementia. Actually, even dementia and Alzheimer's is kind of called type 3 diabetes, okay? So we can't demonize these things. We just have to understand the process of it. But here's what happens this. So let's take a look at some of the cardiovasculars this. Let me see a question. Look at this here. Is it more about fat or sugar? Let's talk about this a little bit. Now, the one thing that I want people to do, and that's why people say, Doc, should your kids join in this? Now remember, my girls have very good labs and very good sugar levels and stuff like that. But the idea is this. I'm training my daughters to do this process because it's good for everybody. Because they're not lacking their calories per day, but they're bringing their calories down and their sugar that way. And once again, if you come to our household, we have the best of the best. There's no processed sugar, but we have good organic cane sugar that you can eat and things that are going to raise your blood sugar that way, all in good forms. But we try to keep it down to a minimal because we don't want their blood sugar to go crazy either. Because can you eat too much organic, lower processed sugar? Yes, you can. You can. So highly processed has a bunch of other health consequences of it that way. But if you just eat too much organic sugar, you can have diabetes too, okay? But I want to take a look at just a simple study here. Here we go. Added sugars in the diet are positively associated with diastolic blood pressure, problems there, and triglycerides in children, as you see from a conclusion. The data suggests that increased consumption of added sugars may be associated with adverse cardiovascular health factors in what? Children. Specifically elevated diastolic blood pressure and triglycerides. There's a big key too. Identification of dietary factors, including cardiovascular health during childhood, could serve as a tool to reduce cardiovascular disease risk. Okay, so I want you to think about this. Now, why was it focusing vastly on triglycerides? Well, we're going to cover that today, okay? Because I want you to understand, by reducing this, triglycerides are part of the formula. What do I mean? If you overlook at your overall total cholesterol, you have your LDL particle, you have your HDL particle, and then you have 1/5 of your triglycerides. And all that can contribute to your total score of what? Of cholesterol. So that means triglycerides, if elevated, can make your cholesterol levels go up. They can. And they're wrong. But doc, what if I damage an artery? Will triglycerides go up? No. But your LDL particle go up, and that can raise your cholesterol. See, there's so many factors that contribute to it. And that's why when people start to go on no sugar, they come back and go, oh my goodness, I saw my cholesterol levels go down. How's that possible? Well, let's get into it and explain why. And we're going to do this. We're going to reference Mayo Clinic today, all right? Because I like what they said here. The only thing I don't like what they said on their website was take a statin. But I'll show you why the side effects come from it. But the idea, let's go at it. Triglycerides, why do they matter? I 100% agree with this, but let's read it. Triglycerides, here we go, are an important measure of heart health. Hold the phone, come right back here, Tom. Okay? They're an important statistic. So when people say, doc, cholesterol has nothing to do with your cardiovascular health. Let's go back to this. Let's set the tone for 2025. Let's do this. I've always said, I'm a huge history buff. Tom, come back to me on this one, okay? I'm a huge history buff. I love history. I love it for leadership purposes. I've learned and studied Walt Disney, Elon Musk, other financial greats that have done wonderful things. And I've modeled some business models after that. Because you know why? History is a good thing to learn from and see what you do. I don't have to know Walt Disney to actually copy his model for Disney itself and how to run a good business. So history is so awesome. So if you look at political history, if you were to listen to Hitler and Stalin, I'm going to say this is kind of crazy, but it's really true. They would sound kind of like a very conservative Republican. Do you say because once again, they're talking about self-responsibility, this, but then if it goes to far extremes, that's where, once again, a dictator comes from. See, once again, so we're going to stay within these boundaries right here. Here's our boundaries, okay? And if you go past this, that conservative thing can be kind of, more of a Hitler thing, okay? Now, on the flip side, you hear people, even like RFK, kind of more like a Democrat, kind of like, okay, we have these things, community, we all pitch in, but if it goes too far, it's communism, all right? So think about that in the medical field and the healthcare field alone. Medicine, guess what happens? It's done some great things, has. I can honestly tell you. I would tell you, I think my personal thing of healthcare history, I personally think the greatest thing that they ever invented was two things, antibiotics and actually anesthesia. Me personally, I think it's two greatest things that medicine has ever created. I really do. If you look at saving lives and things it can do, I think it's two amazing things. But then when they get into prevention, they kind of go too far, and now it's vaccines and statin drugs. Anything to do with prevention really messes up the body. On the flip side, I believe people more like me and more of the natural healthcare realm. We do some amazing things. We have a health history of herbs and things like that and adjustments for a ton of years. Well documented. But guess what happens this? Let's go back to dentistry. I literally know people, I've seen this. I've literally seen people not go to the dentist and have a massive abscess. They won't take an antibiotic and they won't get Novocaine because it's a chemical. And I'm like, dude, you're too far on this side. You're driving me nuts, okay? Now, bringing that all back together, let's take a look here. Triglycerides are an important measure for heart health. Yes, it's a conglomeration of many things in the middle. Here's why triglycerides matter and what to do for your triglycerides are too high. There's the key. If they're too high, if you've been keeping an eye on your blood pressure and cholesterol levels, there's something else you might need to monitor. your triglycerides. Having a high triglyceride level in your blood can increase the risk of heart disease. Yes, I agree. But the same lifestyle choices that promote overall health can help lower your triglycerides too. Oh, that means you have an effect on it. That means you have a choice. You're not genetically programmed for this. You have so much influence in it. Are there some exceptions to the rule of familiar hypercholesterolemia? Yeah, but those are the massive exceptions, not the rule. They kind of tell people it's more genetic because then they show you have no control over it. Let's go on. Triglycerides are a type of lipid, fat, found in your body. That means it can't just put in your bloodstream. You got to circulate it with a protein. When you eat, your body converts any calories it doesn't need to use right away in triglycerides. Hold the phone. Come back here, Tom. Did you hear what I said? See, I just watched a chiropractor, which I'm embarrassed to watch this video, said, can we just stop with this whole calorie thing? No, we can't. Because here's what happens. I'm going to have you come over, and I'm going to have you come to my house. No processed food, ultra-processed food, all organic, gluten-free, every possible best choice, homemade, more whole foods than anywhere you're going to eat. But I'm going to have you eat 5,000 calories, and you don't really work out that much, and you just work out every once in a while, you do things that way. Guess what happens? Your body ain't going to burn that many calories in a day. It's not. So this concept of calories don't matter, it's all about chemicals. No, I agree with you. I agree with you that if you eat, 6,000 calories of good food compared to 6,000 calories of ultra processed, yeah, you both have too many calories, but there's a lot more junk that can mess up your liver and other organs, and I'd be scared about that stuff. But still, over calories is over calories. But let's go back to it here. When you eat, your body converts any calories it doesn't need and uses right away into triglycerides. Triglycerides are stored in your fat cells. That means sugar converts into your fat cells. Later, hormones release triglycerides for energy between meals, which means you have a calorie deficit. If you regularly eat more calories than you burn, particularly from high carbohydrate foods, high carbohydrate, high glycemic foods, you may have high triglycerides, hypertriglycemia. Okay, now here's my point. What do you think about this? If you eat too many foods, especially high carbohydrate ones, high glucose foods, your body says, I can't burn off that much. Now I have to convert it and store it as a fat, a triglyceride. It'll start in your liver as glycogen. It'll go to your muscles. And your body says, I have nowhere else to put it. So therefore, now what I need to do is I need to mobilize that through the body. I need to put it in different places by the organs and viscera, the belly, the butt, and other things. But remember, the triglycerides are not just dumped in the system. So it needs to grab a particle, an LDL. Guess what happens? And guess what happens? It grabs it, it puts this whole little ball together, and let's take a look at those little balls there. Look at the LDL particle to the left. There's cholesterol, there's triglycerides, there's proteins. And the reason why it's called low density is because the low density lipoprotein, so a lipoprotein, proteins are high density. But then you start adding fat to it, start adding triglycerides and cholesterol, a fatty lipid, it becomes lower dense. That means it will float. That means it gets into a liquid like your bloodstream, it will float along. But look at over there. There's very low density. Now why? Because as you add more triglycerides, it becomes very low dense. That means it has less protein concentration than your LDL. That's why it's called very low density lipoprotein. All right? Now, once again, now the body says, I gotta circulate that, and it puts in your bloodstream, you draw your blood, oh my goodness, I have high cholesterol. Oh my goodness, it must be my genetics because my grandpa had it and my dad had it and now I have it. Well, maybe grandpa and dad had the same bad habits and pass on to you all the Snickers bars and all the high sugar stuff, and maybe there's a lifestyle factor as the main contributor. And that's one of the major reasons why we actually have cholesterol problems, is that just simple thing right there. Now, Doc, but you said before in the other shows that if you have damage to the artery, that LDL will start to circulate to help repair. Yes, I didn't say that sugar was the only reason. Didn't say, see, and that's why you always see these commercials. If diet and exercise don't work, now you get a statin. Yeah, I know what they're saying. They're saying your lifestyle factors actually aren't going to change it much because you're not really mobilizing sugar through the system, but you do have a lot of damage. So I still need to put out cholesterol to repair that damage. So unless you find the damage going on and repair that, LDL and cholesterol is going to be elevated, try to repair. See, so the blood work kind of gives us actually a view of what's going on. I want you to think about this. One thing why I love being a chiropractor, and Alex, is one thing I've beat into your head since I've known you since you were a teenager. When you recognize, and this is why I love chiropractic, because they lost this though, because they became no different than medicine. They became all about money. They run to the government. You just gotta refer out to all the real doctors. That's what our school's like. That's why I don't really care about our schools. But here's what happens this. If you go back to our history, talk about this, history buff. Man, the one thing about our profession, recognize that the body doesn't make mistakes. It's adapting to the environment and also your environment you created, let's say your sassiness. See, so when I look at a cholesterol panel and somebody has high cholesterol and the over-natural people say, cholesterol doesn't matter. I'm like, well, hold the phone. And then you have the other extreme over here that says, cholesterol is going to kill you, it's going to cause all heart disease. Well, hold the phone. The answer's right here. Guess what happens? Is it a bad sugar lifestyle problem? Or even if you change your lifestyle, is it a repair problem that you need to do there? But I will tell you this. Either response, Alex, the body was really what? Smart. But doc, how can it be smart if now that LDL circulates and deposits something in some of those arteries? Well, because here's what happens this. If it doesn't, your blood sugar goes extremely high all the time, and you can go into a hyperglycemic coma and die, or cause neurodegenerative disease. So even the body's trying to protect itself from what you're doing to it. So let's take a look. What's the difference between triglycerides and cholesterol? Triglycerides and cholesterol are different types of lipids, fats, that circulate in blood. Triglycerides store unused what? So don't tell me that calories don't matter. Calories, when it comes to cholesterol, matter when your triglycerides are high and provide your body with energy. Cholesterol is used as a building cells and certain hormones. Now here's what happens this. This is on Mayo Clinic's website when it comes to this. So if I was a medical doctor, I'd go, okay, cholesterol, LDL particles extremely high, but triglycerides are normal. You have some major inflammation and damage that we need to find, otherwise your cholesterol will never go down. And if you lower that cholesterol when there's triglycerides are not high, you slow the repair process of your body. Don't believe me, it's one of the labeled side effects on statin drugs. Slow wound healing. They know this. But medical research and medical practice can't match up because there's no money in trying to find all that stuff. But if I can just generate you a drug, and all of a sudden you stand up for a long time, and if you get off it, the damage is still there, still going, and all of a sudden, look at your cholesterol jump back up. The minute we took out statin, we are so right. No, you're so wrong. Okay? Compared to if triglycerides elevated, you need to get yourself to work. Stop eating the sugar. Stop over-calorying it. That's why you see me talk a lot about calories, because I will literally look at blood work and their triglycerides are over 150. I'm gonna tell you right now, the levels they say for triglycerides I think are too high in the first place. They should be under 100. But I've seen cholesterol as high as 700. And I have to look at a person saying, this is not genetic, this is habitual. But let's take a look at the stats. Here we go. Why do high triglycerides matter? High triglycerides may contribute to hardening of the arteries, yes, yes, yes. Or thickening the artery walls, yes, 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 I agree, which increases the risk of stroke, heart attack, and heart disease. Extremely high triglycerides can cause acute inflammation of the pancreas. Okay, come back here. Come back here. See, if you notice, pancreatitis is very common. Do you know why it is? Do you know why? Because what happens when we have so much sugar, when we actually have so much triglycerides in our system, your body's very smart and says, I have to respond to this. And your pancreas starts to put out a ton of lipase, which helps us what? Break down the fats. because your blood's getting too thick. But then I want you to imagine this. Alex and Mike, you guys work all the time. You ever pushed your muscle a little too hard? Did it swell? Pancreatitis. The pancreas swells because it's overworked. Let's go back to this, Tom. High triglycerides are often a sign of other conditions that increase the risk of heart disease, stroke, including obesity and metabolic syndrome. A cluster of conditions that include too much fat around the waist, high blood pressure, high triglycerides, high blood sugars, and abnormal cholesterol levels. See, high triglycerides can also be a sign of what? Diabetes, metabolic syndrome, low levels of thyroid hormone, that's the metabolism, certain rare genetic conditions. Oh, I love that they said rare. Sometimes high triglycerides are a side effect of certain drugs. Look at those down below because they mess up this whole process. So what we're going to talk about today, when we look at the term cholesterol, I want you to encompass that. Guess what happens? That if there are lifestyle factors that can help you, there's going to be things that lower your blood sugar, and that's going to change your cholesterol levels because you're going to change some of your triglycerides. So let's take a look at some of the steps. How to reduce your cholesterol. Number one, start with reducing sugar and join our No Sugar Challenge. And the reason why we tell you about the No Sugar Challenge, because it's free. It's free. Do you understand that that's what these Saturday shows are for? It's to give you information so you can take control of it. Now, don't get me wrong. Let's say your triglycerides are very normal or low. Then there's other inflammatory damage to certain parts you have to look for. But that's where blood work can guide you. Let's go back. Reduce calories. Sorry, Mindy. Chiropractor saying calories don't matter. They matter extremely. Take vitamin D3, K2, yes. So important for maintaining blood sugar, immune response, everything. But Gymnema, okay? I can honestly tell you, this is probably the fourth most sold thing I've ever done in history, okay? Albizia was number one. California Poppy, number two. Does anybody want to guess what number three was for my stats? Actually, licorice, because of all the adrenal insufficiency and all the problems in the morning and low cortisol levels in the morning and stuff like that. But then fourth was Gymnema. Now why? Why would Gymnema be so important for people's health? Well, let's take a look at it. See, it helps you normalize your cravings and also sugar levels, maintain healthy blood sugar, helps maintain cholesterol levels in a normal range. Well, wait, hold the phone. How could that do that? Because it deals with sugar. So we're going to talk about Gymnema. Let's pull up some of the research from clinical biochemistry and nutrition. If you ever look at it this way, it's kind of like a lock and key. So let's see the receptor on the bottom of the graph and glucose molecule on top. So you can see the glucose molecule goes into the intestinal receptor. And guess what happens? It'll go in there and it'll be absorbed through the intestine. But go down a little farther. Gymnemic acid, so the active component. Now, if you guys know, I've been teaching you the bioactive components of all the herbs because there's a reason why we give it. There's a bioactive component in Gymnema called gymnemic acid that actually binds to the receptor. It's like a lock and key. The key comes in, and guess what happens? Go back to the picture here. And it binds to the receptor. So now when glucose is coming through the intestinal tract, it says you have nowhere to bind to and absorb in. So let's see what happens. Although there are many photoconstituents that can combat diabetes and obesity, a single photoconstituent that could be used in the treatment of both disease simultaneously would be a welcome addition. Gymnemic acid fulfills that criteria. Here we go. The common masses do not avail of the fact that obesity can also be caused due to overaccumulation of sugar molecules, specifically sucrose, although with fat molecules. The common layman needs to be made aware of these facts, since they are posing a big threat after cardiac problems and cancer. The review paper aimed at putting forth the molecular perspective of the medicinal aspects of glycemic acid and also a possible link between obesity, diabetes via the potential common medicine. Do you understand that this is something that has very little to no side effects and can inhibit the absorption of sugar? And you saw a very important cardiovascular and cancer, because cancer can use the sugar molecule. So therefore, why don't you hear about this? Also, gymnemic acid at Gymnema has certain bioactive components that help regenerate the beta cells of the pancreas. Hold the phone, doc. So it acts kind of like a medicinal plant drug and has regenerative aspects, helps restore some of the pancreas? Yes, it does. Man, I tell people, so people say, could I take it while I'm doing no sugar? Absolutely you could, because it's going to help the pancreas. And you're going to have better function of the pancreas. That's why when someone came in with pancreatitis, I'm like, give them lots of enema. What? Well, y'all want to regenerate that thing. It's overworked. We need to help it out. See, so therefore, there's so many things that we do from a restorative perspective that's over here. Do you see, Sam? In that natural world, okay? Now, next thing we can do to lower those cholesterol levels, eat lots of fiber, okay? Now, to all my carnivore friends, I love you. I do, okay? Because you guys have done a wonderful job of actually bringing back how the importance in the amino acids and proteins and animals and things like that. But, and I said, it's a little too extreme over here for me, because now I'm just going to talk about it has nothing to do with cholesterol. But if I look at certain pathways in the liver that are affected for metabolism of hormones and other things, I can't get rid of. I can't be a carnivore. That's why I say, please eat carnivore-ish, which means I want to throw some fiber things in there, because here's what happens. Fiber and all the meta-analyses have just wonderful research. Let's take a look. Association between dietary fiber intake and overall mortality from all causes, cardiovascular disease, and cancer. One thing that we know, if we just go in conclusion, in the large nationally represented sample of U.S. adult population, intake of total fiber, soluble fiber, and insoluble fiber were associated with lower risk of all causes, cardiovascular disease and cancer mortality. It's just good. It's just good. It really is. I can never get away from fiber. I can't look at all the research. I can't look at all the stuff. I can't look at the pathways. If you look at a Dutch test and some of the contributing factors, like some of the cruciferous vegetables, which are great fiber things, I can't. That's why I can never be carnivore, okay? Now, you're wrong. I'll give you Aaron Walton. You saw the commercial. Great job, guys. I had to put her on just carnivore for like 3 months, because even Brussels sprouts, because of her GI tract, she would bloat and have gas and have problems. So are there exceptions to the rule for some time? Yes, but now she eats all of her fiber-based foods with no problems in the GI. So if you look at the recommendations for fiber, I think they're still too low. I really do. My girls eat more than this at all ages. Me, my wife, my friends, I don't even believe that they're doing enough for RDAs when it comes to fiber. But as you guys know, what I like to do, and these are all free on our website, these are even on our Wellness Way Challenge page, which is the free Facebook page. I try to give you guys so much stuff for free and stuff on there. Here's these wonderful things you can put up on your refrigerator. You can download this for your computer. You can see that I give you the great fruits, the vegetables, the nuts, seeds, legumes, the other high fiber things, and I even give you the exact grams of it that way, that you can kind of set up your kind of lifestyle that way. We love avocados, man, blackberries. That's why if you ever notice, you say, Doc, no sugar. Yeah, but guess what happens? The fiber actually counteracts this stuff. So that's why I have those things there. There's handouts that you can do and print out. Give them to your friends, give them to your family. They're all free. Go to our website, go to the challenge page, they're all there. Last thing. I put vitamin D3 twice there. That's because it's so that important. But then chromium. Doc, chromium, what the heck is chromium? Well, chromium is an essential mineral that plays a role in how insulin helps the body regulate blood sugar levels. Insulin is a hormone your body uses to change sugar, starches, and other foods and energy you need for daily activities. Some evidence suggests that chromium supplements may help people with diabetes, low blood sugar levels. People with diabetes either do not make enough insulin or cannot properly use insulin, that's insulin resistance, and the body makes. As a result, glucose or sugar builds up in the bloodstream. As many as 90% of American diets are low in chromium, which I totally agree. But it's rare to truly be deficient in chromium. People most likely are deficient because of elderly, those who have actually strenuous exercise, those who eat lots of what? Sugar. So I kind of have to say, even though this is a very high-known, medical website, it says that, but it's rare to be truly deficient in chromium, but it says those who eat a lot of sugary foods. Do you think Americans eat a lot of sugary foods? Pregnant women, okay? Now, here's one thing I love. I'm going to show you the highest chromium-based food there is. What's that right there? Cinnamon. Cinnamon. See, I've just given you some wonderful lifestyle things that help you take control of your health, that can make your 2025 better. That you have to spend less money on drugs, less money on natural medicines, less doctor visits medically, less visits at the wellness way. I tell people I think I'm a horrible businessman because the way I teach things and why I want you to watch Saturday mornings is because then I hope you won't have to see our doctors. I hope you want to buy our stuff that way because lifestyle things are so key to everything. 95%, I'm just reading stats, 95% of all diseases are preventable by lifestyle changes. So that's why every Saturday morning, get your butt here. If you don't get a chance to watch it on YouTube, watch it on the website, watch it on TW Plus, because TW Plus has more. See all these things. I'm going to continue to bring other people that study these individual things. But all those things will be on our paid website, and that's our TW Plus. You can still get 3 months free if you go to the website, the Wellness Way, find the button that says TW Plus, put in the code DISAGREE. You can see all the behind the scenes exclusive stuff. Because, no joke, leadership and longevity, I actually lose money every time we have the seminar. Because why? I have to pay those people to come. They don't just like me so much that they come. I'm not that cool, you know what I'm saying? But I believe this. But I put that behind there, and once again, it covers our costs, and I get more people and more interviews for you guys to do things. So that being said, guys, I am so excited for 2025.